Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 744 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And the Rangers, of course, last night, Thursday night, posting a pretty impressive 4-1 road victory against the Montreal Canadiens, a pretty complete win for the Rangers. One of those games where you never really felt like they were in danger of losing it. It took them a while to really step on the gas and really get things going as far as creating quality scoring chances is concerned. But I thought defensively, they were sharp for the entire 60 minutes and really gave the Canadiens just about nothing in this game in the way of scoring opportunities. The Canadiens only had 4 shots in the first period, 7 in the second, 7 in the third period. So the Rangers really locked them down, and whenever they actually did get a decent scoring opportunity or two, Jaroslav Halak thwarted them far more often than not. He allows just 1 goal on the 18 shots by the Canadiens. So we're certainly going to talk about a strong performance from Jaroslav Halak and his ability to turn his season around after, I think a lot of Ranger fans were really panicking based on what they saw from Halak early in the season. So we'll talk about Halak. Also want to break down some of the goals that the Rangers scored. The Rangers have been scoring a lot of goals that are sort of the just shoot the puck variety, and there were at least 2 of them in this game as well. So we'll talk about that. Also going to talk about Filip Chytil and his recent strong play. Somebody who's becoming a very popular player among fans and also a very important member of this Ranger roster. And also going to talk about Igor Shesterkin making the All-Star team. But we will start with the other goalie on the New York Rangers. That's Jaroslav Halak. I guess you can sort of maybe call this a revenge game. Jaroslav Halak played for the Montreal Canadiens from 2007 to 2010. And he was traded, but by that same token, the Canadiens had Carey Price, so I don't know how mad you can get about that if you're Jaroslav Halak. But either way, he's back in his old stomping grounds here. Halak's kind of bounced around the league a little bit. And I will say, going into this game, I wasn't really expecting this. I wasn't really expecting Jaroslav Halak to draw the start in this one. It just didn't really feel necessary. If you include today, Friday, where the Rangers obviously do not play, the Rangers are going to play just 3 games over the course of 9 days. So you could pretty much ride Igor until the wheels fall off. It's not like the schedule is that dense over this week and a half time period here. But then again, you do have to get Jaroslav Halak a game sooner or later. I don't think it's ideal to have him sit around for 2 weeks or potentially even more without seeing the ice. It's just going to be hard to keep him sharp if that's how infrequently you're going to use him. But the other thing, a couple of reasons why this does make some sense. I mean, first of all, what I just said there, but also the fact that, the Rangers, they play the Canadiens here. The Canadiens, frankly, are just not very good. They had lost 5 in a row coming into this one. And then after this, the Rangers' next game will be at the Devils on Saturday. You certainly want Igor Shesterkin in net for that one. And then the 2 games following that will be home against the Wild, home against the Stars, 2 of the better teams in the Western Conference. So if you dig a little bit deeper here, you can kind of see the reasoning why Jaroslav Halak would get the start in this game. And also just the very simple fact that Halak has played a lot better recently. He's coming off of 2 strong starts before this one. And we'll kind of highlight this recent 3-game stretch for Halak in just a second. But as for this game, again, really, really good game. He stopped 17 of 18 shots. And something that was interesting, and I alluded to this just a second ago, but Halak stopped, again, 17 of 18 shots, but he did not face a single shot on goal until about 17 minutes into the first period. And on one hand, I mean, that's a pretty easy night for your netminder when you're going that long without having to do a whole lot, and in general, only facing 18 shots on goal the entire night. But on the other hand, if you're a goalie and you're in a game and the game is just going and going and going and you're not getting any action whatsoever, I think sooner or later, you want to get into the action. You want to, start to get loose a little bit, feel like you're into the game, part of the flow of the game. When you're going, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 17 minutes without seeing a single shot on net, you have to be starting to get at least a little bit anxious, I would imagine. Probably a veteran goalie like Halak, who's been around for a while, played for a bunch of teams, has played in probably every kind of game you can imagine. He can probably handle that a little bit better than maybe a young, inexperienced goalie in the NHL. But be that as it may, I think sooner or later, you want to face a couple of shots. So for him to not face any shots for 17 minutes and then play very well despite that and, jump right into the game as soon as the shots finally start coming on net, that's impressive in its own right. Is it as impressive impressive as, stopping 52 of 53 shots? No, but again, when you go long periods in this game of not seeing any action whatsoever, but then the action does come your way and you're still ready to make the saves, that's impressive, like I said, in its own special way. And for what it's worth, Jaroslav Halak also received the Broadway hat once this game was over. So good night for Jaroslav Halak. And as far as a couple of his better saves on the night, Dadonov, this was actually the first shot on net of the game for the Canadiens. Strong drive to the net, and Halak, basically just makes a point-blank save there, and obviously keeps the game scoreless at that point. Then in the second period, pretty crazy sequence here. You had the Rangers shorthanded because Kravtsov had taken a too-many-men penalty. What happened was Kravtsov was going off the ice, and the puck basically came right to him, and I think instinctively he just kind of kicked it along. But by that point, Jimmy Vesey had already jumped over the boards and onto the ice. And when Vesey saw Kravtsov playing the puck, it was kind of funny because he basically threw himself back over the boards to try to get out of play and avoid the too-many-men penalty. But no such luck. They called it. And then the Canadiens, couple chances on the man advantage here. The Rangers, by the way, have the number 3 penalty kill on the road right now. But Halak makes a really nice left pad save on a shot from the slot. This was maybe his best save of the entire evening, and what a big save it was because it kept the game scoreless and set the Rangers up to score a shorthanded goal. Because you never know. Listen, if the Canadiens score on the power play here, maybe the entire complexion of the game changes a little bit. They've got the lead. They're at home. The crowd's probably into it. Maybe they start to feel a little bit better. It's a team that's obviously been floundering lately. You never know how something like that can affect the game. Now, it's also possible that they score that goal and the Rangers win this game 4-2 instead of 4-1. But again, you just never know for sure, how a goal in that situation is going to affect everything. But Halak made a big-time save there, and the Rangers go the opposite way. Kreider ends up with a breakaway. It ends up being an unassisted goal. Fakes going across the crease there, and instead just slams his shot into the near side there, inside the post. 5th shorthanded goal of the season for the Rangers, 2nd for Kreider, and that was actually the first shorthanded goal allowed by the Canadiens this season. They were the last team in the NHL to not allow a shorty, but the Rangers, of course, took care of that situation. And it's crazy. I'm not somebody that needs to come out here and be like, oh, I called this, I call that. But I will say, I said not too long ago, a couple episodes ago, that Kreider and Mika were due to link up for a shorthanded goal just because they've been really close recently. Rangers have created a couple of opportunities while shorthanded in some recent games, and Mika didn't really have anything to do with this one. He was on the ice, but at least Kreider got the shorthanded goal here. And then a little bit later in the game, they almost linked up for another one. You had Mika with a centering pass to Kreider, and Kreider went in behind the defense and a slashing penalty on the Canadiens. Not sure how this didn't end up being a penalty shot for the Rangers because Kreider was in the clear there. But nice to see the Rangers, again, not only killing off penalties, but actually creating some offense while they're shorthanded. And in this case, of course, Kreider comes through in the clutch, gives the Rangers a 1-0 lead. But back to Halak here as far as his greatest hits. Third period, another really nice save while the Rangers were shorthanded. Thought he might actually end up getting the shutout here, which would have been nice. He obviously started the season in rough fashion, but the Canadiens broke through with about 5 minutes and change to go. But it is nice to see Jaroslav Halak turning his season around here as, the veteran backup Ranger goalie. I realize there still might be some Ranger fans that aren't sold on Halak, don't really trust him in spots like this. And, that's somewhat understandable based on how he started the season with 6 consecutive losses, but I think even the Halak naysayers, you got to be feeling at least a little bit better at this point when you see what he's done over these last handful of games here, the last 3 starts that he's had. From most recent to least recent, Halak, in his last 3 games, has defeated the Canadiens, the Panthers, and the Flyers. All 3 of those games were on the road, and in that time, he has stopped 78 of 85 shots, and he's now 4-6-1, save percentage of .896, goals against average of .285. Not great numbers, but they are all at least trending in the right direction, as is Jaroslav Halak himself. So definitely nice to see him kind of find his game, stick with it, hang in there on a new team, and, play some good hockey and get some wins for the Rangers. But we got a lot more to do. Got to talk about Igor Shesterkin making the All-Star team. Also want to break down a couple of these goals that the Rangers scored. We just took care of the Kreider short-handed goal, but want to talk about the other 3 and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. And we will do all that good stuff in just a second. But first, I just got to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Built Bar. Looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories? Then you gotta try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is to eat healthier this year. If you're like me and you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, then the thing for you is Built Bar. What makes Built Bars so good? For starters, they are covered in 100% real chocolate. That is right, 100% real chocolate. And they come in unbelievably delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built bars. You could pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. BuiltBar.com, and now available at Walmart and Sam's. All right, so just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. And as I mentioned just a second ago, want to go ahead and break down these 3 other Ranger goals that were scored. We talked about the Chris Kreider shorty while we were breaking down Jaroslav Halak's big night. And the Rangers did get a little bit of a break here. You had a 2-on-1 for the Canadiens, and Drouin rings his shot off the post. But I will say, other than that brief, rush into the zone by the Canadiens, the Rangers in the second period, even before they started scoring goals here, and of course they already got the one from Kreider, but for the second period, and the game as a whole, but I think especially in the second period, the rink was absolutely tilted in the Rangers' favor, doing a lot of work in the offensive zone, and it eventually pays off. You got Panarin making a pass back to Braden Schneider. Schneider lets it fly from the blue line, goes top shelf, and scores. Vincent Trocheck was there in front of the net, but this was Schneider's goal. Trocheck did not make any contact there. And another stat that you'll probably find interesting here is that the Ranger defenseman now, and they said this on the broadcast, now up to number 2 in the league as far as most points from the unit of defensemen on any given team. And obviously Fox helps out quite a bit there because he's a point-per-game defenseman. But the Ranger D-men, whether it's Schneider, whether it's Keandre Miller, even Trouba a little bit recently, chipping in a little bit more offensively, getting on the score sheet a little bit more often than certainly they were at the start of the season. So that's been really, really nice to see. As far as the Ranger third goal, we didn't have to wait too long, just 59 seconds to be exact. You had Filip Chytil getting a semi-breakaway, not able to convert there, but then you've got the puck along the boards, VZ going to work there and keeping the play alive. Puck goes around the net to the other side to Lindgren, and Lindgren from the boards makes a short pass to Filip Chytil. Heels in the left circle, just lets it fly, scores 3-0. And as I mentioned earlier, the Rangers in recent games, scoring goals on a lot of the just shoot the puck variety. They've kind of been having this shoot first mentality recently. There was one exception to that early in this game. In the first period, Kakko went right up the center of the ice, had a great opportunity to score, tried to force a pass that wasn't really there. But other than that, I think the Rangers, in this game and in recent games, certainly Panarin recently, a lot of guys with that shoot first mentality, and it's paying off for the Rangers. The second and third goals here, again, it just comes as a result of the Rangers being ready, willing, and able to throw the puck at the net and take their chances, and both Schneider and Chytil scoring as a result of doing so. So that's awesome to see. And as far as the final goal, we might as well go ahead and talk about this as well. Filip Chytil with his second goal of the contest. The Canadiens took a penalty with just 2:32 to go. Ryan Lindgren was shaken up on the bench because Armia had just cross-checked him in the back for no reason. Haven't heard anything about Lindgren, but hopefully he's all right going forward. I mean, if that guy's breathing, he's basically going to be on the ice. I mean, that's basically how it goes with Ryan Lindgren. If he sits out, that it's something serious. But we've talked on here about how important he is for this team, and obviously we don't want to see him miss any time, that is for sure. But he draws the penalty there by, once again, getting cross-checked in the back. And then the Rangers are on the power play. Canadiens are down by 2 goals. They have to pull their goalie to get to 5-on-5. And Fox makes a pass out of the Rangers zone up to Filip Chytil, heels right around the Montreal blue line and just shoots it into the empty net and scores with 1:10 remaining to make the score 4-1 and seal the win for the Rangers. But second straight multi-point game for Chytil, 2 goals in this one. He had a goal and an assist in the preceding game, and 2 of the goals are empty netters, but you know what? They all count, and nice to see Filip Chytil being opportunistic and even being trusted to be on the ice in situations like that with the Rangers. I mean, maybe not so much in this game because the Rangers were up by 2 goals, but he was on the ice in the last game with the Rangers, only up by 1 goal late in the game. So obviously he's earning some more trust from the coaching staff. And for somebody that has been under the weather, or at least he was under the weather in the last game, that's pretty impressive when you're not feeling so great and you still have 4 points in your last 2 games. And Gerard Gallant, for his part, mentioned that was the reason for, or mostly the reason for Filip Chytil and Barclay Goodrow flip-flopping in the most recent game. You had Chytil dropping down to the 4th line, Goodrow moving up to the 3rd line. Gallant mentioned that Chytil was a little bit under the weather and, maybe didn't have all of his energy, so that's why that change was made. And Filip Chytil, predictably back in his 3rd line center role for this game. But we're going to keep everything rolling in just a second. I want to talk about Igor Shesterkin making the All-Star team. Also want to talk about the Rangers calling up Gustav Riedel. A couple other things as well, and we will do all that in just a second. All right, so Igor Shesterkin, as we just mentioned, is an All-Star this season. He is the Ranger representative. I'll get into the way that they choose players to the All-Star game. It's a little bit odd. I think there might be better ways to do it, but it's interesting because Sam Rosen, during the game, said that this was Igor Shesterkin's first time making the All-Star team. The on-screen graphic said that this was Igor's second time making the All-Star team, and Sam then, quote-unquote, corrected himself and said this is his second time making it. Even though Sam was right the first time, this is Igor Shesterkin's first time making an All-Star team. It was highway robbery that Igor did not make it last season. Now, he was recognized at the end of last year as far as being a member of the NHL's first team, and that's basically just what it sounds like. It's the best players in the league, the best center, the best left wing, the best right wing, the best left defenseman, the best right defenseman, and the best goalie. There's 6 members, 1 for every position, and then you have the NHL's second All-Star team, which is the same thing, the next 6 best players at every position. So maybe that's where the confusion came from, and maybe that's why, whoever did the on-screen graphics believe that Igor had made the All-Star team in the past. But yeah, no, if you can believe this, Igor did not make the All-Star team. He technically did not make the All-Star team last season, despite having one of the best seasons that we've ever seen from a goalie. It was highway robbery when it happened, but part of the reason for that is the way they do it is, there's 4 All-Star teams, 1 for every division, and every team needs to have at least 1 representative, and that's kind of where we are in the process right now. So the Metro, there's 1 player from all 8 teams, and in fact, I have it in my phone here, so I might as well just go ahead and read it for you guys. Obviously, Igor Shesterkin for the Rangers. You've also got Sidney Crosby, Johnny Gaudreau, Kevin Hayes, Jack Hughes, Brock Nelson, Alex Ovechkin, and Andrei Svechnikov. So that's your 8 players for the Metro division so far, and then there will be 3 more players eventually voted in. I'd like to think that Adam Fox will get some consideration, maybe Panarin, maybe Mika Zibanejad, but we shall see how that whole thing plays out there. But just kind of a little bit of an odd way as far as how they do this. But this year, once again, Igor Shesterkin makes the All-Star team despite the fact that his numbers were better last year across the board. But Igor still very, very deserving, obviously having a very nice season for the Rangers. He's got a record of 18-6-5, a save percentage of .917, and a goals against average of 2.43 to go along with 1 shutout. And again, all great numbers, but it's just the ultimate irony that last year, an historically phenomenal season for Igor Shesterkin for any goalie, and he does not make the team, and then this year he does. But I suppose they're making up for it here. Although, honestly, regardless of what happened last year, he's more than worthy of being on the All-Star team this year as well. And as far as the other 3 players that get in the Metro division, we'll look to see how that shakes out in the coming days here whenever the polls close there. So I want to keep everything moving along here, change gears a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about Gustav Riedel. He was called up by the New York Rangers from the Hartford Wolfpack. Part of the reason for this, Johnny Brodzinski's wife went into labor yesterday, and I haven't really seen any update there, but obviously all our best wishes to the Brodzinski family and hope everything's good there. But obviously Brodzinski was not going to be available for that game last night. Ridal, for anybody that needs a little bit of a refresher, he signed a one-year deal with the Rangers in the offseason. They signed him out of the SHL. And in the preseason, Ridal, played pretty well, looked pretty good whenever he was out there. But Ryan Carpenter beat out Ridal for the fourth-line center job at the start of the season. The Rangers admitted that part of the reason for that was because they knew that they could send Gustav Ridal to the minors without exposing him to waivers, whereas with Carpenter, he would have to pass through waivers. So they didn't really want to do that. Now, as fate would have it, Carpenter, handful of games into the season, he ends up getting sent to the AHL anyway, had to pass through waivers, and he did, but he's now in the AHL. Unfortunately for Ridal, though, when they sent Carpenter to the minors, Johnny Brodzinski was the guy that got the call up to the Rangers, and Brodzinski's done okay in his fourth-line role, but Ridal obviously still waiting for his opportunity, and we'll see if he ends up getting it here in one of the upcoming games. I mean, he is on the Ranger roster now, and he was actually on the ice during the pregame skate, so getting his feet wet a little bit, I suppose, but as far as Ridal is concerned, his player profile, 27-year-old center. He has skated in 24 games with the Hartford Wolfpack this season, 4 goals, 5 assists, and he is a +2. And again, we'll see if he ends up getting his opportunity. I don't know if it'll happen in the next game because it's a big-time, important game against the New Jersey Devils. Obviously, a rivalry game, a divisional matchup, and they're neck and neck in the standings. So I don't know if they would just throw him out there in a game like that. It's at least possible. Do you take Sammy Blais out of the lineup to make room for Ridal? It's something that they could do. Maybe Gauthier sits. We shall see there. But if Ridal goes in, you'd have to imagine that he would be at center on the fourth line, and Barclay Goodrow would move to one of the wings to accommodate, Ridal being into the lineup. But we'll see. My inkling would be that it won't happen because the Rangers are hot lately and coaches don't like to mess with the lineup that much after, a win, much less a handful of wins in a row. So we will see. We will see if Ridal eventually slots in there or not, or Johnny Brodzinski could even be back. I haven't heard any update there either. But one quote from Chris Knobloch, the Hartford Wolfpack coach, who has obviously coached Ridal this season, he mentioned that Ridal is somebody who gets better every day. He also called him one of the best skaters in the AHL, and he also put over his work on the penalty kill as well as him becoming kind of a go-to guy when it comes to defensive zone draws. So there's some things to like for Ridal. Always a little bit of an unknown until, they get into the NHL and they get in there into a game and, you see how they fare. But an intriguing player for sure, and we'll see if he eventually makes his Ranger debut either in the next one or somewhere down the road this season. And then the other thing, I mentioned this briefly a second ago, but Filip Chytil, once again, was ill in the most recent game. And again, you got to give props to somebody who can get 4 points when they're a little bit under the weather, excuse me. A couple other things I wanted to mention here before we call it a day. For a place that's usually pretty loud, Montreal, and kind of crazy, thought they were a little bit quiet for this game. And I've been mentioning this recently. The Rangers' last 3 road games at Montreal, at Florida, and at Tampa, I feel like the crowds haven't really been into it. And I obviously post all these episodes on YouTube, and I saw a comment, because I mentioned this in a recent episode, I saw a comment that said, well, hey, that's a good thing. If you're on the road and the arena's quiet, yeah, you're absolutely right about that. But, at the start of the game at least, give me a little bit of noise. Make me feel like I'm actually watching an NHL game. It's great when, as the game progresses, you can take, the road arena out of the equation a little bit, as the Rangers did. But yeah, for Montreal, I thought it was a little bit quiet in this game. I realize the Canadiens are going through a rebuild, and they're obviously struggling recently, so that might have something to do with it. But, or maybe, you know what? Maybe I'm just so used to Madison Square Garden being alive and just the fans bringing it, making a lot of noise. Probably not fair for me to hold every fan base to the standard of New York Ranger fans, am I right? So maybe that's part of it too. Another stat that I have to throw out there, they put this on the screen during the post-game show after this win for the Rangers. Braden Schneider, I've been raving about him and how well he's played, scored a goal in this game, adding some offense to his game, big-time hitter, just a really good player, and him and Ben Harper have really clicked together on that third pairing. But Braden Schneider, crazy stat here, he has now gone 22 consecutive games with a plus-minus that is either even or a plus. He has not been a minus in any of the last 22 games. And to break it down a little bit further, in 13 of those 22 games, he has been an even plus-minus. In 7 of those games, he is a +1. And in 2 of those games, he is a +2. Schneider and Harper obviously don't get as much ice time as the big four, but when they're out there, teams are not scoring goals. I mean, they've been a shutdown pairing, and when that's your third pairing and your 5th and 6th defenseman, you have to feel really, really good about the blue liners going forward. I mean, Fox is Fox. We don't even have to talk about him, really. Should be the leading candidate for the Norris this season. Ryan Lindgren has been great this season, and Trouba and Miller have both, kind of turned their seasons around a little bit after some just really rough starts for both of them. But yeah, Schneider and Harper getting the job done, especially Schneider, and just can't wait to see him continue to develop in this league. Also, just wanted to mention the World Juniors. You've got the United States winning the bronze medal by beating Sweden 8-7 in overtime, and you had Canada winning the gold by beating Czechia 3-2 in overtime. And honestly, I was talking about the Montreal crowd a second ago. I feel like that might have been when they were the most loud that they were all night, is when they would show an update from the World Juniors on the video screen there, because Canada got up 2-0 in that game. They were cheering for that. And then they scored in overtime to win the gold medal. They went nuts for that as well. But yeah, congratulations to the U.S. for getting the bronze. Congratulations to Sweden for making it to the Final Four. Congrats to Canada, obviously, for winning the gold. And congratulations to Czechia for winning the silver. It's always a great tournament. And always a tournament I wish I could watch a little bit more of. But when it runs hand in hand, with the NHL season and the Rangers, it is a little tough to find time to watch all those games. But awesome tournament. And you can tell it really means a lot to the players that participate in it. So up next for the Rangers at the Devils on Saturday at 1 p.m. The Devils beat the Rangers earlier this season, and then the Rangers in the second matchup beat the Devils in overtime. And what was interesting is that both teams blew a 2-0 lead in each of their games. The Rangers were up 2-0 against the Devils in the first matchup. Devils came back and won. Devils were up 2-0 in the second matchup against the Rangers. Rangers came back and won. So always a crazy matchup, even when both these teams were struggling a couple years ago and both going through their rebuilds and frankly just were not that good. It feels like there's always a big game feel with these two teams. And now that they're both, getting better and improving, and Devils have been in a little bit of a tailspin lately, which is fine by me. But, that rivalry is always alive and well, regardless of where these teams are in the standings or what's happening around them. Always intense, spirited hockey, and I'm looking forward to more of the same when these two teams square off on Saturday. But yeah, that'll pretty much do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that is @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. A lot of the episodes premiere on YouTube, sometimes close to a full day in advance of the audio version. So if you're not subscribed, definitely do so, and you'll be the first to know whenever a new episode drops. But yeah, that will do it for today, guys. Thanks as always, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL Prospects podcast, your daily podcast covering the next generation of hockey superstars leading up to the NHL Draft. Locked On NHL Prospects, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.